All right. So for the ones that are in here, you guys get to listen to my awful, awful jokes. They're horrible, but it's okay. You can laugh. First one. Why did the book join the police?
They're in booking. That's okay.
He wanted to be undercover. What do you call a fly without wings? A fly without wings. A walk. Come on, guys, these are funny. Come on. Come on. Okay, knock. A little old lady. I didn't know you could yodel. A little old lady. So I think Mr. Kim might be embarrassed right now to even call me his wife. But here you go.
No, you're my weirdo. All right, so I want to have a quick chat with you before we worry about going live or anything like that. So let me get everyone's attention. All right, so last week I noticed something small, but actually it has a bigger impact than what you guys think. We do the letters to put you in groups, and we did that. It's actually on purpose. That's to break up everyone that sort of hangs out in a little group, so you get exposed to other people. Now, if you're new, it's totally cool to be with someone you're comfortable with. We don't have an issue with that. But for everyone else, we just want everyone to have the experience of being with other people. Last week, we had people jump ship from their group and go hide in another group. And so we ended up with one group with 3 people in it, and other groups with lots of people in them. We aren't going to do that, all right? So please go to your assigned group. Leaders, if someone has the wrong letter in your group, send them to the correct group. If they do not have a label and they do not know which group they're supposed to be in, send them to myself or Miss Paula. We will take care of it, all right? So there is a reason for this. It may sound like we're being mean old people.
We are.
Yeah, and I am a little mean. But I came across this morning, actually, and I wanted to read it to you. And I want you to really think about what's being said here. So, not on your phones, I want you to pay attention to this, okay? So, this was written by Amy Weatherly. No clue who she is, but I really liked what she wrote. So she said, "One of the best things that ever happened to me was being left out." Think about that. One of the best things that happened to her was being left out. These are the people that aren't in your group. Look around. You see people that aren't in a group? That was me. I mean, I knew a lot of people, but I didn't have a clan. I didn't have my clique. I didn't have my group. So it sounds crazy, and I never would have believed it at the time, but it's true. One of the best things that ever happened to me was being left out. All those tears over not being invited taught me empathy. All those feelings of loneliness and insecurity showed me what it feels like to be left on the outside of the circle. And it feels like crap. But I never would have realized if it hadn't happened to me personally. I include other people because I haven't always been included. I notice other people because I haven't always been noticed. I encourage other people because I haven't always been encouraged. I try my hardest to love other people as they are because I haven't always been loved as I am. I'm loyal, I'm understanding, I do my best to be honest, I forgive, I try to fix things when I mess up, and I show up. I'm not perfect, not even close, but oh my word, nobody can ever say that I didn't try with everything I have. I'm good to my friends, and I genuinely think it's all because I know what it's like to be left out. We always have the opportunity to let the hard stuff harden us. We always have the opportunity to let pain keep us from growing. We always have the opportunity to let the wrong people lead us down the wrong path. We always have the opportunity to hurt as an excuse to hurt others. That's one opportunity I hope we let walk right past without as much as blinking. But what I do hope we learn, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I hope we learn to be kind, or to be the kind of person we wish someone had been to us. We can change things, but we gotta step it up. We gotta change us first. This is the point of our groups. If you're always with the same group of people, we're not even talking here at church, in life, at school. If you're always with the same group of people, you're going to become a little hive mindset and not think of anything else. You're not going to think for yourself. You think you're being a rebel, that, this is what the cool kids do. You're just one of a bunch. You're not one of you. So be an individual, but don't be afraid to find people who aren't in a group and make them a part of yours. So, before we actually get to worship, ladies, come on up. Our first activity is almost going to happen immediately. So let's go ahead and break into groups so we can save that time. So your groups don't have to go everywhere, just gather your leaders up and we can do worship. As soon as worship is over, we will immediately go into our first activity.
See over here, see over there.
Good evening, Instagram! Welcome to Wednesday night Renewal Youth. We are so glad you're here. We're so glad everyone's here in the room. We're having a little competition going on, trying to see who's going to get fed first. Because we got some awesome food tonight. Looking forward to it. But first, we're going to have some amazing worship sung by our own youth group members. So ladies, the floor is all yours. Yes, he likes his hourglass a lot. All right, so we are in week 3 of our series of Waitlisted, where we've been talking about waiting and waiting and waiting. So we're going to kick things off tonight a little differently. We're going to see how good you are at things like waiting, walking, and listening.
All right, so one quick instruction first. So what we're going to do is I need everybody out of your seats. And go in this aisle here. Everybody over here, along this aisle here. So Ms. Paula's going to give instructions, but you guys are basically going to be doing a loop around. So you'll be walking across the front here, going up this aisle, across the back. Just keep doing a loop. All right? But she will give you instructions. Oh, wait, they're not being all crazy. They're just keep moving. So
Just keep moving.
Keep moving.
All right. Here we go. So this little activity if I can, everybody face me to begin with. It's okay. It's okay. No, it's something different. Face me. So this activity actually has 6 rounds. Okay? So round one, I'm going to give you 2 commands. 2 commands. One is wait, which means stop in your place, stop wherever you are, just stop. Okay? The second command is walk, and that means to walk around. Okay? So we're going to have 30 seconds on this round. So I think, Ken, do we have a timer? There will be a timer? Okay. Okay, we're going to get started. So you're going to have to listen to my voice. You have walk and wait. Don't trick you, don't trick you. Okay, here we go. And walk. Wait. Walk. Wait. Walk. Wait. Walk. Wait. Walk. Wait. Walk. We're up. We're done. We're done. Okay, 30 seconds is up. Okay, now round 2. We're going to switch it up just a little bit. So round 2, the command of wait now means to walk. And walk now means to wait. All right? Got that? Okay, here we go. Walk.
Nice.
Oh, wait. Wait. Walk. Walk. Walk.
No, we can't.
Wait. Wait. Walk. Time's up. 30 seconds is fast. Oh my gosh. Okay, listen. Okay, here we go. Round 3. We're going to put walk and wait back to normal.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so walk and wait back to normal. Got that? But I'm going to add 2 more commands. One command is name, and you yell your name. Second command is clap.
Yell your
And you're going to clap. So you're going to have 4 commands. Walk, wait, name, clap. Here we go. Are you ready? Here we go. Name. Walk.
I'm going, so yelling at me.
Clap. Wait. Name. Clap. Wait. Walk. Walk. Wait. Clap. Name. Clap. Walk. Wait. Walk. We're done. Okay, that was round 3. Now, round 4. Let me have your attention. Walk and wait are normal. But now when I say name, you clap. When I say clap, you yell your name. And here we go. Walk. Clap. Wait. Clap. Name. Walk. Walk.
Oh, yeah, I don't know what you say. It's ridiculous.
Name. Clap. Wait. That was awesome, guys. Good job. Okay, now, round 5. Round 5. All the prompts go back to normal. So walk means walk, wait means wait, clap means clap, name means say your name. I'm adding 2 more prompts. 2 more prompts. I've got jump, which means jump. Dance, which means dance. Are we ready? Are we ready? Okay, here we go. Dance. Walk. Jump. Clap. Name. Walk. Clap. Dance. Name. Name. Clap. Oh, we're done. Okay, last round. Everything stays the same. All right, let's listen. Everything stays the same, except jump now means dance. Dance now means jump. All right, so here we go. Clap. Walk.
I don't like it.
Wait. Jump. Jump. Dance. Dance. Walk. Name. Wait.
I didn't hear.
Jump. Jump.
He said jump a dance.
Dance.
Oh.
Dance. 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 Okay, we're done.
Nice jumping.
All right, get back in your groups, guys.
Thank you, everybody, for participating. That was awesome.
So the game we just played might not have seemed very difficult, but it really was, wasn't it? It got confusing after a little bit. So it's not easy to listen, think, and react all at the same time. Some of you got so focused on doing or thinking about doing the right thing that you didn't hear the next command.
All right, so again, thank you for playing that. That was awesome. What a great activity. You really had to pay attention. You really had to listen and think, because when those commands got switched, it was a little difficult to remember what was what. So we're going to break for a quick small group discussion. We've got our questions up here on the screens. Our first question is, what's something you've been listening to recently? Whether it be music, TV, whatever. What are you listening to recently?
Hold up. Let them listen to the instructions real quick.
And then, when do you struggle to listen or pay attention? So when is it difficult for you to be able to do that? Those are your 2 questions.
All right, we're gonna have to get moving along. So let me get everyone's attention, please.
Yeah, because these are pretty good questions. I think that one of the favorite question I have from that is when do you struggle to listen or pay attention? Because even as adults, we have that issue. I can tell you that, like today, I had a 2-hour Zoom meeting on the computer, and I was just like, oh my word, and totally lost focus. totally just zoned out. I don't even remember half of the meeting.
She just admitted that while we're online.
I did admit that because it's the truth. It is the truth.
I have a hard time paying attention if I'm reading something, an article or something like that, or editing pictures. Paula will start talking to me. I don't hear a word she says.
She hears nothing.
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 And she gets mad. Did you hear what I said?
So what about you guys? What about you guys? What are some, what's that?
She didn't get the little lip twitch in. She's got a little lip twitch when she's rolling out.
All right. So what are some things that you guys discussed? What are some things that you have difficulty paying attention to or listening to? Elijah. Important things. Sometimes they just go over your head and you don't get it. Jake. When I'm not interested in the topic, which is kind of what happened to me today. Anybody else share anything in the group?
When you guys yelled out an answer?
Daniel said he takes his math teacher because he's lame. He looks like an egg.
Sometimes your math teachers are lame. I understand, and it's okay. At least you're being honest.
Any from over here?
All right.
All right.
Okay.
We're going to do a show of hands. We're going to see if you can relate to anything, any of these scenarios.
Just a second. He's going to give you a scenario. Raise your hand if you understand or if you had this happen to you.
All right. So, have you ever been listening to someone tell a story or make a point, but suddenly you realize you haven't heard a thing they said for several minutes?
I think that's pretty much everybody in the whole group, yes.
All right.
Okay.
Number two, have you ever been telling a story or making a point, but suddenly realize, hey, no one's listening to me anymore?
Kind of how I feel like this sometimes here on Wednesday nights. I don't know.
All right, so little quick personal story is I'll start talking about something and then I realize that no one's listening. And so what I've actually done to see if anyone's actually paying it, I'll just stop my mid-sentence. I will stop and not finish anything and no one will say anything. Isn't that the best feeling in the world? Like, wow, I'm that important that they didn't even notice I stopped talking halfway through the sentence.
Well, okay. I'm not going to go there. But, so we all want to be listened to, right? We want everybody to hear what we have to say because we've got important things to say. So we want to know that our voices matter, that what we say means something, right? That people care about what we say. So if they're listening to us, that means they really care about what we're saying. And we really want to know that they're listening. It's important to us. So when you stop mid-sentence and somebody goes, are you going to finish that? Then you're like, oh, okay, they were listening. And then you go on. So it makes you feel so much better. So that's all true, but I think it's especially true during difficult times. When you're going through something that's kind of stressful, very difficult, that's when you really want to know that people are listening to you. When you're feeling frustrated, afraid, confused, or anxious, it means a lot to know that someone that you're talking to is listening to what you're saying. So today we're going to talk about listening and being heard, especially during those difficult moments.
All right, so, I was trying to think, this guy here to talk about a time that I struggled to believe God was listening. And I really had a hard time figuring out what story would I use? I'm like, oh my gosh,
So many to choose
it's either so many or I just can't think of anything. And I think the one that really stuck out to me, my dad, when I was, actually before I was born, had gotten cancer. And he went through treatment, everything was taken care of, went into remission, so everything was great there. When I got into high school, actually it was pretty much my senior year, he and I just got into it. We were both bullheaded, argued, whatnot. After I graduated, I had started working at Home Depot. Found a guy that had a room for rent, and I moved out, and I quit talking to my dad. And it was about a year and a half or so. I was really angry with how he was with me. At the time, I didn't see how I was with him. So it was a real big thing. It was actually a couple of years. They actually sold the house that we lived at, that we had horses, and moved up to North Florida. And so I think I only saw maybe the moving truck one time. I didn't even help move. So it was quite a while, and took a while, and then had to go through a healing process with myself, and finally reached out to him and started talking to him again, and went up there. It's actually a small town where we used to go hunting, and so finally went up there and reconnected. So it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years, that I really didn't talk to my dad. And so, that whole time, why is this happening? What's going on here? Why was he like that? And me not realizing I was a certain way too. And it's just guys and button heads. And so it's one of those things. Want to patch things up, but I'm too angry about everything. And that's one of those things. That was also around the same time that I quit going to church. I didn't believe what I grew up believing, and that really pulled me away. And so all that happened all at the same time. So that was one of those: is God really there? Does He listen? Does He hear me? All the stuff that I'm going through, am I just by myself? So we will come back to this story in a little bit.
We will. So I don't know if you have a story like Mr. Ken's, but if you do, I hope you know that you're not alone, that everyone goes through these types of feelings. If you don't have a story like Mr. Ken's, that's okay, because remember, even if you've never questioned whether God is listening to you, someday you might, but also you might also know someone who's going through that right now. So whether it's because you're wrestling with doubt, like you don't know, or experiencing some tragedy, or difficult situation with parents, you're walking through some very difficult circumstances, it's understandable. And sometimes it's okay to wonder, is God really listening to me? Is God really listening to me? So we're going to go ahead and break for some small group discussion questions. So we have two for you to discuss in your group. The first question is, when do you feel most heard or listened to? And when do you not feel heard or listened to? And then the second question, why do you think some people struggle to believe God is listening to them? Those are your questions. Oh, snap, that's a hard one, yeah.
Those are some deep ones.
All right, so we're going to bring it back to the whole group. I know that you guys are having some great discussions in the small group. That first question, when it talks about when do you feel most heard or listened to, I read this been a while, it's been a long time ago, that like 90% of our communication is done non-verbally. So the way that I feel listened to is when someone's making eye contact with me when I'm talking, they're nodding their head, they're turning their head, they really look like they're listening to me. So that's when I feel the most heard, is when that nonverbal communication is going on, and that's perfect. So but when you don't feel listened to is when you're talking to someone and they're doing this. Yeah.
There you go.
That's it. They're on their phone. That's when you know they're not hearing a word you're saying. And that's when you don't feel important and you don't feel like your voice is being valued. Yes.
When people try to tell a story, they try one up their story. Like
Exactly, because you're telling the story and they're already thinking in their head what they're going to say to one up you, and you know that they're not really listening to you. That's exactly right.
All right, so there's someone in Scripture who asked the question too: is God listening? His name is David. He's one of the most famous figures in the Old Testament of the Bible.
Yes, that would be King David.
So you've heard of David and Goliath, right? Yeah. All
Wait, y'all heard of David and Goliath, right?
Hands up, David and Goliath.
That would be
You've heard of David.
participation time. Yes, thank you.
All right, so. All right. So it's the David from that story. But we're going to get ahead of ourselves, so we're going to start from the beginning.
From the beginning with King David. So, first thing we have is that David is chosen as the king. That's our scene one. David is chosen as king. So when David was a young boy in the land of Israel, a man named Saul was king. And although God had originally chosen Saul to be king, he kind of fell out of graces with God. He kind of lost God's blessings and favor. So God was on the lookout for a new king, and God found a new king in David, a young shepherd boy. So because David was so small and unassuming, he was almost overlooked. Nobody paid attention to him, but God saw him. God sent the prophet Samuel to anoint David with the oil, symbolizing that David would one day be king. So we know he's set up, he's going to be king. That's a pretty awesome promise. But what God didn't tell David at that time was that David would have to wait for that promise to be fulfilled. And the waiting was going to be really, really difficult.
All right, so the second scene of this story is David defeats Goliath.
Everybody knows that story, right? Yeah.
Most everybody. I didn't see everyone raise your hand, so either you didn't want to participate or you didn't know the story. So, later, King Saul's armies were being attacked by their enemies, the Philistines, including a giant of a man named Goliath. I think they said he was, 9 foot tall? 9 foot tall. That's a tall dude. All right, so no one wanted to fight Goliath, but David was up for the challenge, trusting God would be with him. So David faced off against this Philistine warrior holding only a slingshot and a few rocks, and David won. So mind you, he's not a warrior at this point. He's actually just a kid tending sheep.
That's dumb, bro.
Yep.
But if you have a big God, that's not dumb.
He did. But he did. And so now, David defeats Goliath, and so he's like this major rock star now, right? So, scene 3, Saul gets jealous. King Saul gets jealous. So, at King Saul's request, David begins hanging around Saul. David was a talented musician too. That's one thing you got to know about David. So Saul would ask David to play songs for him and on his harp. It was really cool. They were getting along great. But this relationship didn't last. It didn't last long. Soon Saul became really, really jealous of David because of everything that he could do and everything he did do. He couldn't stand how everybody loved David. So he was like burning up with jealousy. And Saul also realized how much favor David had with God. So Saul grew so angry that he tried to kill David by throwing spears at him. Yeah.
So scene 4 is Saul versus David.
Saul versus David. We should have like the big, "Are you ready to rumble?" Sorry.
So things got so bad.
I've always wanted to do that.
Surprised you didn't hang it from the cord.
Right?
So things got so bad that David fled the kingdom while Saul and his men hunted and continued trying to kill him. So Saul, remember, is a king of a very large country. And he has a huge army at his disposal. And he's chasing down this dude that killed a giant with a slingshot that was tending sheep. And who was really still actually probably y'all's age. So think about that. That's how old David was. He wasn't some 30, 40-year-old. He was a teenager when all this happened. So Saul's men chased David from city to city. There were a few close encounters, but David stayed safe from Saul's attacks.
All right, in our 5th scene, David becomes king. So it's a long and dramatic story, and you can read it all in the book of 1 Samuel in the Bible. But let's kind of fast forward a little bit to the fulfillment of God's promise to make David king. Saul eventually died in battle. When he did, David was finally made king and was no longer waiting for that promise to be fulfilled, the promise that God gave him that he would be king. David's path to the throne wasn't what he wanted, wasn't what he had planned, but here's what's amazing. During more than the 15 years of waiting for that throne, which is probably longer than a lot of you have even been alive, David never stopped talking to God. Never stopped talking to God. He talked to God when he was lonely. He talked to God when he was surrounded by his enemies. He talked to God when he was discouraged. He talked to God when he was angry and when he was desperate.
And this isn't even where David's story ends. Even after he became king, there were so many moments in David's life when he cried out to God, and God heard him every single time.
Every time. Now, when we were talking about David, I told you that he was a very talented musician and he could play the harp. Throughout his life, David wrote plenty of songs for God, which now can be found in the Bible, in the book of, does anyone know? Psalms. Very good. These songs that David wrote are prayers to God. And sometimes they're very raw and very honest. And many of them were written about some of the moments in David's life that we just talked about. In Psalm 57, it's about one of David's close encounters with Saul when he was on the run. So this is what David wrote.
Have mercy on me, O God, have mercy. I look to you for protection. I will hide beneath the shadow of your wings until the danger passes by. I cry out to God Most High, to God who will fulfill his purpose for me. He will send help from heaven to rescue me, disgracing those who hound me. Interlude means, wait, quiet time. My God will send forth his unfailing love and faithfulness. I am surrounded by fierce lions who greedily devour human prey, whose teeth pierce like spears and arrows, and whose tongues cut like swords. Be exalted, O God, above the highest heavens. May your glory shine over all the earth.
Bars.
So when David was being hunted, he was eventually cornered by Saul's men. Now, it made sense that David would be terrified, right? I mean, his life is being threatened. He's about to be killed. But what David chose to do was to cry out to God in his darkest moment. So why do you think he did that? Probably because he trusted that God was listening despite what was going on. Despite the terrifying moments he was in, he knew God was listening. So that's who he cried out to. God heard David's cries when he was in the pit of despair. And God hears us in our pits of fear, anxiety, discouragement, and even doubt. God always hears us.
So here's another song he wrote about God hearing our prayers. Come and listen, all you who fear God, and I will tell you what he did for me. For I cried out to him for help, praising him as I spoke. If I had not confessed the sin in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. But God did listen. He paid attention to my prayer. Praise God, who did not ignore my prayer or withdraw his unfailing love from me.
So despite everything that David had experienced, he was certain God heard his prayers.
So in response to many times God listened to David's cries, David also wrote this song. I love the Lord because he hears my voice and my prayer for mercy. Because he bends down to listen, I will pray as long as I have breath. Death wrapped its ropes around me. The terrors of the grave overtook me. I saw only trouble and sorrow. Then I called on the name of the Lord. Please, Lord, save me. How kind the Lord is, how good he is, so merciful, this God of ours. The Lord protects those of childlike faith. I was facing death, and he saved me.
So God made a promise to David that he would one day be king. That's what we've been talking about. So while David was waiting for that promise to be fulfilled, a lot of things happened. So he fought a gigantic army with a gigantic dude, right? He dodged spears when Saul was throwing the spears at him to try to kill him. He was hunted like a wild animal, guys. He faced loneliness, he faced terror, despair, anger, and discouragement. He prayed. Very important. He prayed. And God never stopped listening.
While David waited for God to fulfill his promise, he chose to trust in God's faithfulness. While he waited, David never stopped talking to God because David knew that while we're waiting, God is listening.
So we're going to go ahead to some group discussion questions. We've got 3 questions for you. The first question, when you heard David's story, what we've kind of just summarized, when you heard David's story, what stood out to you or surprised you, and why? The second one, how do you think David developed the confidence to write so many songs about God listening to his prayers? And the third one, have you ever struggled to believe God heard your prayers? Tell us about that. All right, guys, we're going to again pull you back to the whole group here. because I can tell you that the food outside is smelling marvelous and delicious and all the adjectives that you want to use to describe it. It's phenomenal. So we're going to move it along so we can go eat. All right?
All right, so let me get back everybody up here. All right. So I can tell you God is listening, not just because David said so, but because I've seen it to be true in my own life as well.
He's going to finish his story about his father. Remember, he talked about the fact that they hadn't spoken in about 2 years. Parents moved away. So he kind of got over himself and reached out, and they started communicating again. It's a little emotional. It's kind of difficult to share sometimes.
So we started talking again, and I went up and visited, and we actually had a really good visit. We started talking again, and it was about a 3.5 hour drive, and we started talking about hunting, and since we were up there, when season hit, we went out a couple times, just sort of like how it was before everything happened. About a month and a half after we started talking again, my dad had been getting up and going outside, and he would lose his breath. And he wasn't sure what was going on, so he went to the VA, so that was a military hospital, and they gave him a checkup to see what was going on. It was he couldn't go out to the front yard, and he would lose his breath. He couldn't make the trip. So they had found out that he had lung cancer, and there was nothing they could do. It was actually in the sac of fluid around the lung. So it's not like it was in the lung where they could take a piece out or anything like that. He had been through radiation and chemo before when he had cancer the first time. So he tried the first bit of this, and it made him so weak. And from the time that he found out he had cancer, I started going up every weekend. So I would get off work, pack up the car, and drive 3.5 hours to get up there, and I would spend the weekend, and then that Sunday in the evening, I'd head back home and work for the week. And it was maybe about 2 months before he passed away. So all that time that I spent angry at him, I turned around and realized I was angry at myself. I was angry at God for allowing that situation to happen when it was happening, before he and I started talking again. And then I was angry at God after we got back together and started talking and hanging out, because now he took him away. So it really challenged my belief and my faith in God to go through all that. Why would this happen? What was the whole point? And it took a long, long time to realize God was listening. He was waiting for me to get over myself so that he could get me back in a relationship with my dad before my dad passed away. So, looking back, I realize now that, I was the stumbling block to, to my own happiness, really, or at least in that portion of my life. That God was listening. He kept my dad alive long enough for me to fix things with my dad. And once all that was said, then he took him home. Because he knew God had listened. He knew I needed that. Because if my dad had died, and I had never made up with him, I probably wouldn't be in church at all. I probably would have gave up completely on church and on God. So, just because you have a bad situation with friends or family or anyone, or it's just something personal that you have, just know God is listening. There is a plan. There is a reason that he's going to reconnect you back to himself. And that's the point of everything, is our relationship with God. Everything else is just stuff that's there, and he directs us back to him.
Thank you for sharing that. So keep talking to God, because he is listening. So why are you waiting? What are you waiting on from God? Are you waiting like David? Are you waiting for God to fulfill a promise? Maybe you think that you've heard from the Lord and he is giving you instructions on what's going to happen, and you're waiting on that promise. Are you waiting for a prayer to be answered? I know I pray a prayer every morning, and I'm still waiting. I've been doing it for a few years now, and I'm still waiting, and I'm not giving up, because I know God's going to do that work. Do you feel like you're surrounded by enemies? Maybe when you go to school, you've got all these people who are cliquey, and it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't feel safe. So you're asking for God to help you with that. Do you need guidance about what steps you need to take next? Is that your cry for God? Are you feeling lonely, afraid, overwhelmed, angry, disappointed, discouraged? When we're waiting on God, God never stops listening. So just keep talking. I feel like on Nemo, Dory, just keep swimming, just keep swimming, just keep talking to God. Don't give up. In Psalms 116, David said, God's ears turn towards us when we pray. Imagine that. God actually turns to us. He uses that nonverbal communication. He turns to us and he listens to us when we pray. So here's two things that you can do when you've got God's ear.
Share your situation. God knows exactly what you're going through right now. But that doesn't mean God doesn't want to talk with you about it. When you pray, tell God what's happening. No matter why you have been waiting on God this week, practice praying about it. Your prayers don't have to be prayers. Just talk. God knows everything. right? So why would we need to pray? Because he already knows, right? So why even bother? That's not the point. The point is having that conversation, just like having a friend, right? You want to just talk, just get it out. And sometimes just in the process of that, things will be revealed to you.
Share your feelings. My favorite part of David's Psalms are how honest and pure they are. He pours out his emotions to God, and you can do the same. And like Mr. Ken said, it's just a conversation with God. I don't know. I didn't know how to pray. I came from a religion where we had scripted prayers. This is what you did. You say this many of this and this many of that, and you're good. Go. And so I thought prayer was a ritual, but prayer is not a ritual. It's a communication that you have with the Lord. And it's just like you're talking to your best friend on the phone. Even better. Because you know they're listening. Because you know God's listening. And we actually, I think we kind of messed up the PowerPoint, ladies, so I'm sorry that we're kind of jumping around, but you guys are doing a great job back there. I appreciate you. Thank you. So now we can go on to that beautiful next slide that you have there. We saw this earlier, and I thought, oh gosh, we need to show this, man. So we're talking about waiting and being waitlisted and what that is and all this waiting. Oh my gosh. But Joseph waited 13 years. We talked about Joseph. Abraham, remember Abraham? He waited 25 years for his promise. Moses waited 40 years. Jesus waited 30 years before he started his ministry. If God is making you wait, if he is making you wait for something, guys, you're in great company. Look at this. It's okay. I think the next slide is probably going to be what we just talked about, but that's okay. It's not. Okay, I'm all messed up. So we were going to do small group questions, but we're going to kind of do it whole group right now. So here are your questions.
So if a friend said they weren't sure God heard their prayers, how would you encourage them? Did you need to hear any of the advice we just shared?
So that's the first question. If a friend says, I don't really pray to God because I don't think he hears what I say. How would you encourage them? What would you say to them? This is the participation part.
Yell it out.
Tell them to wait. Wait. It's okay. Anything else? Yes. Right, good point, Jaden. Bring it back to your experience that, you know what, I'm still waiting. And I still pray every day. We have to wait, which answers that second part of the question about using the advice from tonight in all this series about waiting. So thank you.
It also shows them that they're not alone in waiting. If someone's waiting and they're thinking that God's not listening to them, and you tell them, hey, not trying to one-up them though, but you tell them, I'm waiting on something too. You're not the only one. It's okay. That will reassure them, because their faith, they may be questioning if God even exists because they're not getting the answer they want when they want it. Because God's answers are in his time, not our time, exactly.
Very good. So John chapter 5, verses 14 through 15 says, and we are confident that he hears us whenever we ask for anything that pleases him. And since we know he hears us when we make our request, we also know that he will give us what we ask for. So thinking about that verse, those verses right there, God hears every prayer. We know that, we've established that. But do you think he answers every prayer? Do you think he answers every prayer? Maybe not the way we want. No. If you, Dan, that's awesome. If you have a bad intention with that prayer, he's not going to answer it. Anything else?
There's two words in there that is the gotcha in the pray for what you want. Does anyone know what the two gotcha words are in those verses? Pleases him, exactly. So you have to, you can ask for whatever you want, but if it's not something that pleases God, then, pretty sure the answer is probably going to be no. All right? Now, what pleases God? What was that?
It's a tough question.
That's a tough question. So when we pray to him, back in the back, having faith in him. So it's anything that brings him glory and honor. It can, anything. I mean, but if you're doing it for the wrong reason, then that's not for him, that's for you. If the girls come up here to sing, and the only reason they're coming up to do it is, look at me, I'm singing and playing my guitar. That's the wrong reason. Our girls don't do that. That is not where our worship team's heart is. But that's what we're talking about here, is what pleases God. And if we're doing it for ourselves, that's definitely not for God.
All right, and the next question is just something I want you to think about. Do not answer this one out loud. This week, what's something you're going to talk to God about more often? Just ponder that, think about that one. So, in the time that we have left,
I'm going to get the ladies coming up, please.
okay. In the time that we have left, I want. Awesome. Ooh. Whoa. Oh my gosh. Now this is the mic I should have had when I was doing the rumbling thing. Oh no! God giveth, God taketh away. Oh my God. So I want to encourage you to take time to act on the things we've been talking about today. And it's really kind of easy. I just want you to talk to God and trust that you're being heard. So while we have the worship team up here playing the last worship song, I want to invite you to come up on our board, and please don't judge my drawing of the hourglass. Do not judge my drawing of the hourglass. But I want to invite you to pray as you write one of the following things on our board, on our hourglass here. You can write a scripture about God hearing or answering prayers. You can write something, a prayer that God has actually answered in your life. You can write a prayer that you're still waiting to be answered. Or you can write a declaration of faith that you know God is listening to you. So as we're playing the last worship song, we have markers up here. Anytime you're ready, you can come up and write something on our hourglass.
That was beautiful, ladies. Thank you. All right, we have just a couple quick announcements. TV. All right, real quick. All right, seniors. Paul is getting hangry. Seniors, May 2nd, save the date, meet and eat. That means there will be food involved. So make sure, if you don't have that on your calendar, add it to your calendar. All right, next up. Graduation Sunday. So again, another reminder, if you have not gone on renewalchurch.com and registered for Graduation Sunday, please do so. They will be getting a gift for you, but they need to know you're going to be there. So that's May 16th. And then that evening is our dessert auction for Youth Kids Ministries. Quick update on summer camp. If you have not signed up, please do so. But guess what? There has been a slight change. Camp Anderson has purchased a new property. We will not be going to the property we saw in the video. In fact, their first couple weeks, they will be recording a new video, and we'll get that to us so we can see their new place. And they say it is bigger and better than the place they had before. And that's it. So we're going to pray real quick over food. Online people, thank you for joining us. May 7th is... this information just rolled in actually just a little bit ago. Sorry, that's why it took a second to click through. It's been a while. Fun Friday. Fun Friday, yeah, because we're not going to do it on the first. We'll do it whenever we have. All right. Oh, Miss Deb is running up the aisles here. Online, May 7th, Fun Friday. Come play some games with us.
Okay, I don't know how Fun Fridays were before, but Barrett and I are doing the games, so it's going to be a little rowdy, I'm just saying. So here's the thing. First off, it's May 7th. Starting at 6 o'clock, we'll have hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff like that. Okay, then we're going to play games. The main game we're going to play is called Whack It. Now, why do we have rules? Hold up. Shh. Why do we have rules about guys and girls not touching and stuff, because that's just not appropriate here? You can, during Whack It, hit them with a swim noodle. So, that's just a little hint of how you play Whack It. I'm just saying you can hit youth leaders, because every youth leader, every single solitary youth leader that shows up has to play. Okay. Period. The cameras don't save you because I used to video and I still got hit. So sorry. All right. Just saying. And here's another thing, guys. Listen up. Whoever brings the most friends who have never come to youth before will get something. I'm not going to tell you what, but I'm going to give you something. So I'm just saying, okay? So whoever brings the most friends that have not come to youth before will get something. All right? So it'll be Friday, May 7th. We're going to start at 6 o'clock. We're going to eat. We're going to scarf food fast till like 6:30 so that we can start playing. Because last time Barrett and I played this, we thought we were playing for like 45 minutes. And at 3 hours, the kids were ticked because we had to stop. So, because the old people were getting tired. So I'm just saying. So we'll see you guys there on May 7th. It's going to be here. We're going to play in the sanctuary, but we have 3 families that are going to provide food outside for you guys, okay? All right.
All right, so the return of Fun Fridays. All right, we're going to pray real quick over the food. Everybody bow your heads, please. Lord, thank you for this evening, everyone that came, all the new visitors, and everyone from before. Bless everyone here, bless everyone that joined us online, and bless this food to our bodies. In your name we pray. Amen.